Greetings to all from Vancouver, Canada. Deconstructing the Transhumanist Agenda Through Law. Citizens' Tribunals, Regulation, Enforcement. My name is Alfred Webre. I'm a war crimes judge and a futurist located in Vancouver. In 1977, while a futurist at Stanford Research Institute and director of the proposed Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study, I was targeted and attacked with directed energy weapons while meeting with an Assistant Secretary of Defense at the inner ring of the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., as detailed in my sworn affidavit to the Disclosure Project, which was part of the National Press Club documentation in Washington on May 9, 2001. The purposes of that attack were to derail the study, which had just achieved White House staff approval. As director, my health was negatively affected by the directed energy weapons attacks, and I was forced to take 3 months leave from my job and eventually resign from Stanford Research Institute. The use of these directed energy weapons, also known as new physics weapons, would be made illegal in the European Union with the European Commission's adoption of our UCATCH proposed regulation that I will describe in this talk. Besides directed energy weapons, the following transhumanist agenda weapons, which are now deployed against the citizens of the European Union, as well as many other parts of the world, would be outlawed, with catastrophic fines and prison sentences for any violations. Quote, weapon systems operating on new physics principles used to torture or inflict other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment, including electronic weapons, electromagnetic weapons, magnetic weapons, directed energy weapons, geophysical weapons, wave energy weapons, frequency weapons, genetic weapons, scalar weapons, psychotronic weapons, chemtrails, aerosol weapons, implant weapons, nanotechnology weapons, high-frequency active oral high-altitude ultra-low frequency weapons, information technology weapons. In this brief summary, I can relate to you how the law in its many applications, natural law, common law, international humanitarian law, European Union law, international treaties, national laws, can be used to deconstruct and stop the transhumanist agenda, which itself is designed to result in the erasure of all fundamental rights to privacy that humanity has been guaranteed to date by stealing and robotizing the human mind. Number one, citizens' tribunals. My over 37 years of challenge in seeking to expose and ban the transhumanist agenda, technology of torture and robotization have shown that our baseline justice, prosecution and enforcement still remains in natural law and citizens' tribunals. That is because most of the major global and national organs of government, legislation, and adjudication are infiltrated and controlled by entities and individuals who can be bent to serve the ends of the transhumanist agenda. Number one, NSA. We have proven that the National Security Agency of the United States, NSA, and its international network of security and police agreements at the national level form a principal technological background of the transhumanist agenda and the way that it is distributed. However, nations of all blocs are involved, as can be evidenced by the facts that the joint U.S.-Russia woodpecker scalar weapons experiments on Oregon in the USA, starting on July 4th, 1976, ushered in a new stage of the transhumanist agenda. Number 2, H.R. 2977, banning HAARP, chemtrails, mind control weapons. Representative Dennis Kucinich filed our October 2001 Space Preservation Act and Treaty under H.R. 2977 in the U.S. House of Representatives, a bill that would have banned all of the transhumanist agenda weapons listed above. The U.S. Department of Defense wrote a negative review of the bill, and Kucinich's office was intimidated and removed the HAARP, chemtrails, mind control weapons ban for no stated reason. As a judge of the 9/11 War Crimes Tribunal and a former judge on the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal, I can report to you that the evidence shows that at the present time, it has been the citizen tribunals of conscience, such as the Tokyo Tribunal for War Crimes in Afghanistan, the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal, the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State, which is based in Brussels, where you are, that have steadfastly brought together investigators, prosecutors, and judges not susceptible to the influence of the political and technological power of the transhumanist agenda, and rendered findings of fact, legal verdicts, and sentences under international humanitarian law, such as the Geneva Conventions and the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, applicable national criminal law and regulation, as well as applicable law and regulation. Proposal number 1, Transhumanist Agenda War Crimes Tribunal. Our first proposal is for the establishment of the Transhumanist Agenda War Crimes Tribunal, a citizens' tribunal of conscience to prosecute, adjudicate, and enforce sentences for war crimes using technologies or weapons as defined above and carried out by any entity, including but not limited to international organizations, national governments, intelligence agencies, private entities, and individuals. The staff, investigators, judges, and enforcement personnel of the tribunal would operate virtually on the varieties of internets available through the administrative base, although the administrative base of the tribunal would be based in Brussels. The tribunal can draw upon the experience of the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State, which is based in Brussels, which has successfully prosecuted and adjudicated and is in the process of enforcing war crimes in the areas of child trafficking and child genocide carried out by the Vatican and 2 popes, the UK Crown, the Dutch Crown, the Belgian Crown, the Government of Canada, and other specific individuals. Proposal number 2, UKACH's proposal for a European Commission regulation to ban new physics torture weapons in the European Union. This proposal has been submitted to the Libe Commission of the European Parliament together with a request for a hearing on these issues. And it is part of the package that has been distributed to you today. We must ensure that the regulation banning new physics torture weapons is heard by the European Parliament, adopted by the European Commission, and enforced against all violators in order to halt the transhumanist agenda. For those of us in North America who have the facade of elected parliaments, it was a surprise to learn, quote, there are three basic types of EU legislation: regulations, directive, and decisions. A regulation is similar to a national law, with the difference that it is applicable in all EU countries. That's the European Commission. Quote, the European Commission differs from the other institutions in that it alone has legislative initiative in the EU. Only the Commission can make formal proposals for legislation. They cannot originate in legislative branches. Now, isn't that strange? Legislation cannot originate in the legislative branches. We all know who thought that up. However, the Council and the Parliament may request the Commission to draft legislation, although the Commission does have the power to refuse to do so. Under the Lisbon Treaty, EU citizens are also able to request the Commission to legislate in an area via petition carrying 1 million signatures, but that is not binding. Way to keep the matrix in power. The power of these unelected European commissioners was illustrated here in Canada in something of a recent political storm when Herman Van Rompuy, President of the European Council, and José Manuel Barroso, President of the European Commission, was given a $300,000 ride in the Prime Minister's official jet back to Brussels so that they could attend an extra cocktail party reception in Toronto. Success equals the tribunal plus the EC regulation. The proven track record of the EC commissioners, the European Union commissioners, at being feted to such largesse by Canada, for example, which has an abysmal record of enforcement against violations of human rights through torture and harassment by using new physics weapons, demonstrates that it's the people assembled before a citizens' tribunal that must investigate, prosecute, adjudicate, and enforce the Geneva Conventions, ICC Statute, national criminal laws against the perpetrators of the transhumanist agenda. In concert with the tribunal and its public proceedings, our citizen representatives can then fan out in the European Parliament, the European Commission, and the media to ensure that the agents of the transhumanist agenda will not be able to buy their way into neutering this law through a bit of bling, threats, or hidden payment. The conference organizers have been kind enough to hand you each a lobbying kit of the European Commission regulation and my talk today. Please do coordinate with Melanie Richant, our most gracious conference organizer, and others there at the conference on how to apply your priceless universe energy to, number one, establishing and continuing to operate the Transhumanist War Crimes Tribunal. Number two, securing the adoption of the EC regulation by the European Commission and enforcement by all EU nations. And number three, moving on to proposal and adoption at the United Nations General Assembly of a United Nations treaty banning new physics weapons with a strong enforcement unit, independent enforcement unit. I would be very happy to receive your thoughts, suggestions, and offers of assistance for this, our proposed work. My email is peace@peaceinspace.org. This talk is available to you. It will be online. It's been my great pleasure. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you in advance for all of your efforts in this regard. Greetings again from Vancouver, Canada.